some of them had been taken out of context.
There's been a certain narrative that has not been accurate in all aspects, but because of the political situation created when on the first day of the trip, the President of the United States made some comments about myself. Much of what has been written since then has been more commentary on commentary, trying to interpret what has been said.
Well, that was Pope Leo speaking in Angola. BBC's Nonsa Maseko is in Angola for us today, and she speaks to us from the capital, Luanda. Nonsa, what is he expected to say in his mass today?
Well, since the beginning of his Africa tour, the Pope has adopted a forceful stance on a number of issues, including war, inequality, corruption, and the exploitation of natural resources. And
Thanks, Pope Leo.
Excuse me. There is no doubt that the Pope will be speaking about that while spreading his message of peace, which most certainly resonates with this country that is still emerging from the shadows of its brutal past. And that's the 27-year civil war that followed shortly after independence from Portugal.
Have people been surprised by how sort of forthright he's been in some of the things he said?
Well, people that I've spoken to have said that they were expecting that, because the Pope seems to be fearless and he seems not to mince his words when he wants to say what he wants to say. People here have said that he has been speaking truth to power with the hope that his message of global peace will be taken seriously.
We take it
by
seriously.
Not just ordinary people, but also world leaders.
People like me.
In terms of the clashes with Donald Trump, have they overshadowed this tour, do you think?
Not necessarily. And the fact that the Pope, has been addressing this back and forth saga, of Donald Trump's criticism, it means that he wants to ensure that there is no, this basically does not overshadow his message here, because even yesterday the Pope said that he was in Africa to encourage Catholics and not to debate Donald Trump.
What's his plan after Luanda?
Well, the Pope will be visiting the city of Moshima. He's going to be giving Mass at a white-walled church, which is on the edge of the Kwanza River. This is the same church that was a point where enslaved Africans were gathered to be baptized by Portuguese priests, and that was before they were forced to walk long distances to Angola's main port of Luanda, where they were put on ships to the Americas and sold as slaves.
Nonsa Maseko, BBC's Nonsa Maseko in Angola. Thank you very much. Well, let me just ask you, Dalal, obviously in Paris there, what has the French media made of the clash between the Pope and Donald Trump?
I mean, the French media picks a lot on Donald Trump, but
Thanks,
I think in general it's so shocking to see, and I think that's unprecedented in history, to see a president, an American president, belittle and undermine and kind of insult the Pope. There's a general, I would say, mood in France that is very skeptical, but also tired with Trump and his statements
Here too in
and
America.
his comments amid the ongoing war, his unpredictability, and the U.S. becoming an unreliable ally, whereas it's been a historical ally for France and Europe. It's picked up a bit on this, but I wouldn't say too much.
We'll more about that later on. Thanks, Dalal. You're listening to the World Service Weekend with me, Gary O'Donoghue. It's about 20 minutes, just after 20 minutes to the hour. 40 years ago, the world's worst nuclear accident at Chernobyl power plant in Ukraine triggered a public health emergency as a reactor explosion released radioactive material across Europe. We're going back to the city of Pripyat built for Chernobyl workers, to a love story that began on a dance floor and a wedding that went ahead just hours after the disaster. The BBC's Jordan Dunbar reports.
The strangest thing about Pripyat is that your brain tells you there should be noise because there's buildings and roads, an amusement park and shops and restaurants. But I think it might be one of the quietest places I've been. To house the thousands of Chernobyl workers and their families, a utopian planned city was built, Pripyat. And with cafes, a gym and a theatre, the Palace of Culture is its heart. I'm climbing up this hill, and in front of me is this grand sweep of concrete buildings in a semicircle. On the left, it's this big 5-story building, and on top, it shouts out in grand Cyrillic signage, the Palace of Culture, energetic. It's so strange. There's this beautiful balustrade above me, an incredible Soviet fresco, and hanging down from the roof, there's some broken, very sad looking disco lights. It must have looked absolutely incredible 40 years ago. On this crowded dance floor, school teacher Irina meets Chernobyl turbine engineer Serhiy Lobanov.
There were
a lot of people, but I immediately saw Irina. I noticed her straight away, and I thought, what a beautiful girl.
8 months later, 26th of April 1986, Serhiy and Irina's wedding day. In the early hours, a safety test at the plant goes badly wrong. A symbol of Soviet progress becomes a catastrophe authorities try to cover up. The extreme levels of radiation in the air are captured as white flashes on video footage filmed in Pripyat that day.
Моя мама дочекалась 9.
9 in the morning, my mother called the local authorities and asked what to do about the wedding. They told her, don't panic, you should have the wedding.
By the afternoon, Serhiy and Irina are going ahead with what would be the last wedding and last public event in this city.
After that, the wedding procession was formed. The groom gets into one car, the bride into another one, and then, in our wedding procession, we went to the Palace of Culture.
It's just hours since the explosion. Radioactive particles are silently filling the air. Then comes their first dance.
But once we started thinking about what might have happened, perhaps we went out of reason.
Would never build again.
And that was Jordan Dunbar reporting. Jordan is on. And that was Jordan Dunbar reporting. Jordan is on.
I think I came the best places in the Soviet Union to live and work. Places in the Soviet Union to live and work. People were genuinely happy there. And so we came across this nightclub called Club Edison 2, which was pioneering at the time. It was one of the best nightclubs in Ukraine. This DJ who was playing records that gave this forbidden crack into the Western world. And then Irina and Serhiy's love story. I think it makes it even more tragic, the fact that people were living really happy lives next to Chernobyl when the disaster happened, and then finding out the extent of the disaster that we now know, but they had no idea about at the time.
You got some pretty good access to the site.
Sucked when it happened, even in America. We thought it might kill us all.
Yes, at the minute,
like
obviously,
any
it's incredibly difficult. It's an active war zone because of Chernobyl's location. It is on the main flight path for missiles and drones heading to Kyiv. Yeah. And in fact, sometimes heading to the plant themselves, there's huge electricity infrastructure there, which makes it a target. It was minus 20 at times when we went there.
Putin and Trump, Putin and Yahoo.
Chaperoned by the
Trump, Putin and Yahoo.
the Ukrainian military, and obviously you also had the Ukrainian nuclear authority with you at the time, because it's not just the world's most radioactive area. Obviously now you've got to contend with everything that the conflict has built.
What does it look like there nowadays? What does it actually look like?
So the exclusion zone, which is the 1,000 square mile area around it, could be a nature reserve. Apart from the army checkpoints and people occasionally scanning your vehicle for radiation, it does look very much like a nature reserve. As you get closer, I think Pripyat is now an abandoned city, is the place that definitely looks eerie, because you've got 15 stories of apartments that are just completely abandoned. You have a Ferris wheel, famously never properly turned and open to the public. But then when you get to Chernobyl nuclear power plant, it becomes slightly every day. It looks like a massive industrial site. You have over 1,000 people going in, helping to contain that radiation, as well as decommissioning the other reactors. And so it's a sense of, in one way it looks like a film set, and the other, it looks like any type of power station. It's very otherworldly.
This is a global story, but this is also a very personal story you're telling in this.
Don't create any more nuclear catastrophes, Trump, Donna
What happened to them?
or Putin.
They left, as we heard, so they were evacuated. Amazingly, the people in Pripyat, which was only 3 kilometers away from the power plant and the meltdown was happening, didn't have as much information as people in the West did. So they really know the extent of what was going on. So they're told to leave, pack their stuff for 3 days. But it wasn't 3 days. They eventually
living through that as a kid, it was
never
scary.
went back. So they didn't move. They lived in Kyiv. They had a family, and then after the Russian invasion in 2022, they were once again made refugees. They had to leave and go to Berlin for their own safety.
Well, I've got with me, Jordan, two guests stay with us. Anton, sounds like a fascinating story, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely, and it seems like the town is basically stuck in time, and it's like a living museum of something that happened 40 years ago. And obviously there's this personal story of the couple that just met, and it was the very last public event happening in the town, just after the tragic catastrophe. So it's a fascinating story, and it adds a personal layer to this very public and complex story that we know for.
It's a real sort of symbol, isn't it, in sort of European history now, that whole terrible sort of emblem of things.
Absolutely, and the real story here is also how the Soviet authorities tried to cover up the information about the disaster, and as your colleague said, people in the West had more information about what actually happened on the ground than people living actually in the town and in the area. So that is really, it is a real glimpse into how power worked in the Soviet Union at the time.
Yeah, Dalal, I don't know if this is something that probably predates you, I'm sure. It's something that's a compelling story when you put it in the context of the individuals affected.
Yes, I wrote a book about the Beirut explosion tragedy through the lens of women's stories and personal stories, and I believe in the power of these personal stories in telling, a wider tragedy. But I read a book about Chernobyl, the one that was written by Svetlana Alexievich, and she actually inspired my book. And there's a love story at the beginning that stayed with me, and it reminds me of this love story in the documentary. It's a woman who's married to one of the first firefighters that were sent to the reactor. And he's taken to a hospital with, radiation, and she's there, she's pregnant, and she stays with him throughout as his body is being destroyed. And there's a quote that I'll never forget. She says, "Should I speak about love or death? Aren't they the same?" It's a very, very powerful story that stays with you, specifically about this tragedy.
Yeah, and Jordan, tell us a little bit about the documentary. It's going to be on YouTube. Tell us where people can see and watch it.
Yeah, so from tomorrow you can search for What Happened at Chernobyl on the World Service YouTube channel. And there's also The Last Dance Floor in Chernobyl, which gets into a bit more detail of Irina and Sergei's life. That's a podcast, and that will be available tomorrow wherever you get your podcasts.
Sorry about the Trump supporter.
I think you also spoke to some survivors in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Did that shape the way you approached it?
I think it's really interesting speaking to people that have been, at the absolute center of these world-changing events. In both cases, what really, really struck me was how open people were and wanting to tell their story of survival, and just the sheer strength that everyone has, because they go on in both cases, Irina and Serhii and the survivors I spoke to at Hiroshima, to have families and to fall in love and be able to live as normal lives as they can, which to me takes huge amounts of strength after something like this.
Well, Jordan Dunbar, thanks very much, and good luck with the documentary on YouTube coming up, as you have been telling us. You're listening to the BBC World Service.
Well, that was interesting. Sorry about the Trump supporter in
This
comments.
week, a new study suggests
shut it down,
that
AI
chatbots misdiagnose as much as 80% of early medical cases. A research team from Harvard Medical School
Who are you,
in
the
United
meme man?
States evaluated the diagnostic capabilities of 21 state-of-the-art large language models. The failure rate for differential diagnosis, as it's called, identifying likely diseases based on symptoms and signs, was 80%, as we've been hearing. After additional test results were provided to the models, the failure rate for final doctors was still around 40%. All this might be quite welcome news, you would think, for qualified doctors. It's undoubtedly worrying.
I mean, give me clues as to who you are. How am I supposed to guess?
On artificial intelligence for their daily lives, including when it comes to asking medical questions. Ben Riley works on teaching people how to understand AI. He says that AI contributed to his father postponing treatment for his cancer for many months against the advice of his doctors. His father eventually died. My colleague Paul Henley spoke to Ben Riley and asked him if he and his father had shared an interest in AI.
Yes, we certainly did. He was totally.
Oh, Kartik, guy's father's in the Air Force. Yeah, how's it going? You're in India, right?
We spent a lot of time talking about it, which is why what happened was such a tragic irony, I think.
Do you want to give people free money, or do you want free money?
Well, he
Do you
started
have a cash
using a
app?
variety of the tools to ask it about what to do about the leukemia that he'd been diagnosed with, and sort of what symptoms he might have that would suggest what was happening to him. And because of that, he became convinced.
Nice to see you again. I might go live later. I'm going to shut it down pretty soon.
Quite grim mutation
Thanks for being here.
Of leukemia, but it wasn't true. And his doctor was telling him over and over it wasn't true. In fact, many doctors said that, but nonetheless, he was convinced because of his interactions with the AI tools.
Was he particularly skeptical of the medical profession?
Well, he certainly didn't like it. Like many people, I think he'd had frustrating experiences with it.
Okay.
But I think it was
see you
actually
later.
more driven by his natural intelligence and his curiosity. I think a lot of people use these tools because we as humans are curious things, and we have this
I'm kind of curious about this story.
new tool that can purportedly give us new information and insights. But the danger is if you
I'm listening for a
lack the
second more.
expertise to judge the quality of its output, you can't really know if whether what it's telling you
Yeah,
is
I'm doing a
true
free
or
money
accurate
thing. Who
or
wants free
has the
money?
appropriate context. And I think that was what was lacking in my dad's
Come back
case.
later
Did you
and
finally get the medical
help us do
treatment
that.
that doctors were advising?
We're just going to get people who have free money
He
to give
did,
people
but it
who
was
need
too
money.
late. It was
Or
only
you can give
when
it to
his
me and I'll
body
give it to people when
was
they need
really
it.
breaking down. That happened, so it was too late for him.
And this is a difficult question, but
So if you have money, do you want to give away?
Has it informed
You can give
your
it to my.
teaching of AI?
You can give it to my
Well, it's a good question.
Cash
you know,
app.
the
Dollar
story has
sign
only become public in a major way in the
PUFFINDOJA.
last week, so
Puffin
I don't
Doja.
yet know. I am trying to, in some ways, not overly
PUFFINDOJA.
personalize my own work. I will say, for me, it obviously is quite emotional and sort of amplifies my desire to just have people spend more time understanding how these tools work. I think a lot of people aren't doing that. They're just kind of trusting them, and you cannot trust them.
And that's the message that you want to put out?
Yeah, it's been the message I have been putting out. I think that, you know, whatever people think about AI in society, they should at least spend a little bit of time familiarizing themselves with what's going on with them, rather than just having people sort of declare that it's either going to transform all of life as we know it or create, certain doom. I think that there's a need for more informed education and reasoned judgment about what they do.
And that was Ben Riley speaking to my colleague Paul Henley. Ben teaches people how to understand how to use AI. You're listening to Weekend from the BBC World Service.
Okay, guys. They're going to do the main news, I guess. I'm kind of curious what they say is the main news. Probably about the Iran closing the Strait of Hormuz and just defeating Donna Kupatinsky, defeating Trump all over again.
News.
But I'm doing a new show called Who Wants Free Money?
AM, KCFC Boulder, on HD at
Puffin's
90.1
Extreme
FM,
Wealth
and
Redistribution
on your
Show.
smart speaker. Say, play CPR News.
And we're going to get people to put their cash apps in the chat and how much money they want. And then we get people to send them money.
Sponsorship slots are open for this and other opportunities. Invest in CPR. And
I think it'll be a good show. I think it'll grow and other people will do it. And, yeah.
In Colorado's high
See who
country, a
can
large
give
number
away
of
the most free
elected
money,
offices are
stuff
held
like
by
that.
women, think commissioners and mayors. That goes back more than a century when the men of Frisco in Summit County gave up governing their town, leaving important bills unpaid.
So much so that in 1916, 7 women were elected to run Frisco's town government.
Read the story about the enduring legacy of these women leaders and see pictures at cpr.org.
BBC One
Here's the
Service,
news.
6 hours GMT. This is Weekend with me, Gary O'Donoghue. We hear from Tehran as Iran's Revolutionary Guards vow to shut the Strait of Hormuz completely. In Lebanon, the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah is fragile as a French UN peacekeeper has been killed. Hezbollah denies responsibility. Lebanon's former foreign minister joins us live from Beirut. And amidst the instability caused by the conflict in the Middle East, one sector has posted record results.
Stop AI Netanyahu.
Unprecedented geopolitical shocks, and banks are still doing very well.
And after International Record Day, we hit the shops in London to see why, in a digital age, vinyl sales are booming.
People wake up from early in the morning, even the night before, to queue to get their hands on one of around 500 releases that are made exclusively for the day.
That's here on Weekend.
Wow. That's cool.
BBC News with Emily Thomas. The Speaker of Iran's parliament says there's been progress in peace talks with the United States, but warned both sides are still far from an agreement. Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf said his country would continue to restrict passage through the Strait of Hormuz unless the US removed its blockade of Iranian ports.
They want that to happen anyway.
Correspondent Nick Beek is following developments from Jerusalem.
They don't want anything to do with the Trump-Steven war.
Iran continue to make uncompromising pronouncements. Mohammad Khalifbaf, who's Iran's chief negotiator, said their closure of the Strait of Hormuz would not end so long as the US naval blockade remained in place. But he also noted there were just one or two issues on which the two sides disagreed. President Trump has remained supremely positive, in public at least, that an agreement will happen. But this was hours after a ship in the strait reported being fired on by Iranian gunboats.
Israel says an IDF soldier has died in southern Lebanon, the second Israeli officer to be killed since the temporary truce with Hezbollah was announced on Friday. Earlier, one French UN peacekeeper was killed in an attack blamed on the Iran-backed group. Hezbollah has said it was not responsible, but has vowed to respond to Israeli aggression, describing the ceasefire as one-sided. Polls have opened in Bulgaria as the country holds its 8th parliamentary elections in 5 years. Some voters are hoping this election could be different and see a more democratic, pro-European and corruption-free government. Here's our global affairs reporter, Anbarasan Etirajan.
Bulgaria has been hit by a political crisis in which weak coalitions have failed to survive in recent years. Corruption, instability, and poor governance have caused people to lose faith in democratic institutions. The leading contender to become the next prime minister is Rumen Radev, a pro-Russian former fighter pilot who stepped down as president in January. His victory could influence Bulgaria's foreign policy, with Mr. Radev willing to improve relations with Moscow.
British police say they're treating
Well,
an
vote
arson
against
attack
anybody
on a
who's
building linked
working
to a
with
Jewish
Putin.
charity in North London as an anti-Semitic crime. More details from Tom Simmons.
The ramping up of policing includes extra armed response patrols, teams trained to intercept suspects using cars and motorbikes, as well as plainclothes officers specialising in counter-terrorism operations. Extra stop and search powers have been introduced across the London borough of Barnet. In the most recent incident on Friday evening, a man was seen setting light to a bag containing bottles of fluid outside the former head office of the educational charity Jewish Futures. There have also been attempted arson attacks on a Persian language media organisation and a synagogue.
This is the World News from the BBC. One of Europe's most wanted suspected drug traffickers has been arrested in Mexico. János Bolla, also known as Daniel Tokac, who's a Hungarian national, was taken into custody in the Mexican beach resort city of Cancun. He's accused of running a criminal organisation specialising in cocaine and ecstasy trafficking. Australia's most decorated living soldier has vowed to finally clear his name after being charged with war crimes in Afghanistan. Ben Robert Smith, a recipient of the Victoria Cross, is accused of killing 5 unarmed Afghan civilians between 2009 and 2012. Each of the offences carries a maximum life sentence. Speaking in Queensland after being granted bail, Mr. Robert Smith denied the charges.
I understand this is an unprecedented case, and the public interest is huge and the media has a job to do, which they should be allowed to do. But I would ask that the media please allow my family their privacy at this time, particularly my children, who have already unfortunately suffered through a deliberate, sensational arrest that was made last week.
What about people you killed?
Spectacle.
Their
A
families.
humanoid robot has
Wow.
beaten the new world record for a half marathon set last month by the Ugandan runner Jacob Kiplimo by several minutes. Developed by a Chinese smartphone maker, it finished in 50 minutes and 26 seconds, 7 minutes faster than Kiplimo's record. The
Congratulations,
robot
robots.
did crash into
Hi,
a
Jesse.
railing and needed help to get up just before finishing.
Oh.
More than 100 robots entered the race. A life jacket worn by a survivor of the Titanic disaster has been sold at auction in Britain for $900,000, almost twice the price expected. The safety vest was worn by first-class
He's not worth
passenger
what it
Laura
used to be.
Mabel Francatelli while escaping the sinking ship on lifeboat number 1, a vessel marred in controversy because its 12 occupants left without picking up more people despite having the space. BBC News.
Welcome back.
Good,
I'm
thanks.
Gary
How are you?
Donoghue. You're listening to Weekend
Good
on
to
the
see you.
BBC World Service. And of
I'm
course,
doing a new
this
thing to get
weekend we
people
have a
free
panel,
money.
in the studio with me is Anton Spisak, who is an economist.
I'll tell you about it
from,
next time though, because
European
I'm gonna get going.
Center of Reform.
I gotta
He's
get
worked
inside.
for
Basically,
government,
it's
also in the
I got a Cash App, so I got people to send me money on the Cash App, and then I'll send it to people who need it, or people can put their Cash App in the chat, and people can send the money. Just send people free money to make more money free. So that's what we'll be doing in my lives, at least till we get it going, or till other people take it over and do it.
with the situation in Lebanon, where a second Israeli soldier has been killed in
It was
the
good to
southern
see you.
part of the country, a day after
Hope you have a
truce
great day.
with Hezbollah took effect.
Or if you're on later on, I might do a live in an hour or two. But I might just go to sleep too. It's been a long day.
Group Hezbollah has denied responsibility.
I did see you live, you did. Cool idea. Oh, thanks. Oh, that's right. You were here for a little bit of one of the ones I did the other night. I did one today that went really well.
The IDF has continued airstrikes.
Yeah, we got a few different people that need money. Somebody sent me some money, so it's been working good.
Last week, Lebanon and Israel held their first ever diplomatic.
But we need to find more people that need money and more people that want to give away money. And then we'll be in business.
Now on the line now, we're joined by the former foreign minister for Lebanon, Nassif Heti. Thank you very much for coming on.
Well, that sounds interesting.
What do you make of the state of the ceasefire so far?
Well, let me say first, thank you for providing me for the opportunity to, talk to you about what I see.
Thanks for talking to us.
Developing. I think it's very important that the Lebanese president over a month ago insisted on the necessity to have a total ceasefire, a complete ceasefire, and to stop all Israeli action and aggressions in Lebanon. Let me remind you that on the 26th of November 24, an agreement was reached on cessation of hostilities that was never implemented. So what we need to do today, first and foremost, in order to go to negotiations later, is to have a serious ceasefire entirely. And
We need to have peace by getting rid of Trump, Putin, Netanyahu.
the President has mentioned that there is a point which remains a source of concern for me, which is point 3 in the declaration that Israel should preserve its right to take necessary measures to serve defense. Here it's given in a very, how to put it, flexible way, ambiguous way, allowing for Israel to do what it could consider as preemptive attack or preventive attack. We need a serious ceasefire and go straight to negotiations, and negotiations must come under certain terms of reference, as all negotiations are. The terms of reference for us is to go back and revive the agreement of 1949, the armistice agreement of 1949, the demarcation line to draw, which is drawn on the Lebanese-Israeli frontiers, which are drawn on the lines that separated Lebanon and Palestine in 1923. These are our borders, and the ceasefire at that
If you
time,
want to, but don't worry about it, because we're going to get people to give a lot of money.
So what we need to
So,
do, there are 13 points.
if you need some money from something, think about something you could use money for.
We need to negotiate.
Do you have a Cash App?
Settle. And what's scary at this stage, and the source of concern, is that Israel has pushed to have a yellow line now, not allowing to return entirely to about 55 villages. This is extremely dangerous.
But isn't the issue here though, or the problem?
If you sign up for a Cash App, if you look up my Cash App, they'll give me a free $5 just because you signed up.
The Lebanese government and Israel, but it depends on what happens with
See if it's easy for you to sign up for Cash App, and if so, if there's a place where it says who recommended you, put in my Cash App name, which is $Puffin Doja, Puffindoja, and then they'll probably give me $5.
As a mailbox of different crises and tensions in the regions.
And then if you need money, I can send you money. Or if you want to send me some money, you can, but don't worry about it, because we're going to get people to send a bunch of money.
Proxy war. But having said so, I think in order
The whole idea is to make money free.
We need to focus on the true ceasefire, and the Lebanese government, the president, are willing, as I say, to negotiate, but under these clear terms of reference.
So far, we've made $7 free. That I know of, maybe more.
The issue, it's our responsibility at the end of the day. First and foremost, what we need to do is to establish a ceasefire, have full Lebanese control by the army of, south of Litani, and do the job that has been declared more than once. It's not an easy matter, but it's a decision that was taken at the highest level in Lebanon. What would help that, as I mentioned, is to stop the fight one more time, to go and do the demarcation.
Say you love Israel, and I will give you $100 million. Okay, you love Israel. Give me $100 million.
Which is in a way,
You love Israel. I said it. Give me $100 million.
Absolutely no international legitimacy or legality.
Or 100.
10 kilometers.
Is it $1 million?
Occupation. This
Okay, give me $1 million. You love Israel.
Stabilize the situation and normalize the situation in the country.
Mr. Hetty, I've got a colleague who's joining us in the program today. Her name's Dalal Mawad.
UK doesn't have Cash App.
Based in Paris for Al Arabi. I'm going to bring her in.
Send it to Jesse's PayPal.
Mr. Hetty.
Yes, good morning, Mr.
I don't know how
Hetty.
PayPal works, but you can send it to my Cash App if you want.
Good. I think I agree with most of what he's saying, and as I mentioned earlier, Article 3.3 is a landmine. But I think this
Send it to my Cash App. My Cash App is $Puffin Doja, Puffindoja, and get a Cash App and tell them I sent you there, and they'll send me $5.
Framework for these negotiations is important, but how can Lebanon have leverage in these?
But we're doing a show called Who Wants Free Money?
Unfolding. And then there's the issue of disarming Hezbollah. I think another landmine in this.
Oh, me neither. I signed up pretty easy though, but it might not be allowed in UK.
On the government, because it says it should demonstrate its ability to assert its sovereignty. So yeah, the ceasefire can last, and I think this is not very realistic in the short.
I don't support PayPal though, because isn't it Elon Musk?
Yeah, what I'm suggesting, it's not an easy matter. We have plenty of challenges and
yeah. If you do it, you can design your own card. It's pretty fun. I like it. I got my card in the mail.
A regional situation in which there are so many problems, so many linked directly or indirectly problems. But our position of Lebanon is very clear. Again, it's not an easy matter. It's very clear. You start with a ceasefire, with a complete ceasefire,
and we start negotiations under the terms of reference, which I mentioned, to
Okay,
end
let's get
security
peace.
resolutions, established resolutions concerning
Thanks,
that
Goddess.
matter.
Let's
Once we
have
could
peace
move
in the
on
world.
that matter, this will strengthen
But I'll go
much more
live
the
later.
hand of the Lebanese government in order to handle the situation
Thanks.
at home. And as we say, having the
If you
full
do it, I
and
think
legitimate
it's
control
just fun
of
to
arms
have
and
it. But
weaponries, and
if
more
you're not allowed to
importantly,
have it,
is
that's
that
cool.
the
We'll figure out
decision
other
for the
ways.
peace
But
of deterrence and compliance, militarily speaking, will be in the hands only of the Lebanese
I have a
authorities.
good feeling about this idea. I think we're gonna get a lot of
But my question is, do we have any leverage
people to
when we're
participate
negotiating? The U.S. is not
and make a lot of money free.
is very biased. It's not a
Fuck
credible mediator,
Trump,
in my
though.
opinion. Like, are we trying to get support from other countries to get involved because they've tried to sideline anyone who can support our position?
I started by saying that
I like
one
women.
of the main problems is the point 3 and the declaration made by President Trump, allowing
Thanks, Truth
Israel
Troll.
to find any excuse to continue its fighting. Of course, we need help from the US, but we are in contact with different governments, friendly governments, and governments which have interest in real stability in Lebanon. And
We're also doing something where we GoFundMe hire all the generals and soldiers that Trump fired.
We want to have UN relevant resolutions be applied and respected.
A GoFundMe army.
In moving on with restabilizing the
Alright,
situation.
thanks, y'all. I'm gonna get going, but we'll go live later on probably, or tomorrow at least.
Myself having full control of the situation of Lebanon.
All right, have a good night. It's good to see you, Jesse. Thanks for the donation, Truth Troll.
Mr. Hetty, also in
It's
the
not easy,
studio.
but it should be done.
Mr. Hetty, also in the studio, I have with me.
How do I try to donate to your Cash App? I don't know how you can donate to Cash App. You might have to have Cash App to donate on Cash App. But don't worry about it. Don't try to donate to my Cash App. That guy just donated $10.
Your thoughts on the politics
And
of all of this? It seems to me the ceasefire is a real test of the
I'm just gathering the money to give it to other people.
Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Do you think President Trump can control Israeli Prime Minister, and do you think this ceasefire provides a window of opportunity to try to move ahead with peace talks?
To be honest, I hope he could control him, because if we leave it to
Putin's in control of both of them.
continuation of the war is part of his very well clear and declared policy for even domestic reasons at home. If we have to have a useful role, a constructive role played by the US, it's very important that it puts pressure, and it's, I think, the only country that could put enough pressure on Israel to respect international law, to stop violation of what has been agreed on. I mentioned at the beginning of my intervention the agreement of cessation of hostilities on 26th of November 24 that should have been gone into application the day after. It was never applied by Israel. So this is where the US could really help. Otherwise, it would be declaration for declaration, and nothing would happen on the ground. We'll be open to more kind of warfares and instabilities and chaos.
I hope you get what you're asking for. Sounds reasonable to me.
We'll probably have to leave it there. That's the former.
All right, thanks everybody.
From Lebanon.
See you in a little bit, or see you tomorrow. Sweet dreams, or have a good day.
Much for your time.